Alright, so anyways, for my last college class, we have to do a team PLC. I have to record myself doing this. And I'm going to look at the use of Blooket for remembrance purposes, especially for my 4th period class. Here's my PLC vision statement. Professional learning communities in Johnson County Middle School will work to achieve each student's success. The goal is to equip each student with the knowledge necessary to thrive, such as critical thinking skills, knowledge building skills, collaboration, communication, and digital literacy skills. We shall achieve this by continual proper assessment practices. PLCs will focus on student learning and the processes necessary for their achievement in secondary and post-secondary life. So looking ahead, we're going to discuss 2 different problems, one with organization, the other with remembrance, a couple strategies, and the results. So the first problem had to do with most of the 8th grade team, 40%, which, as we all know as educators, we want at least 80% to recognize the strategies that we're teaching them so that they can succeed in life. So 40% were failing to stay organized. I talked with Ms. Fannin, and she said that I need to try to use some more graphic organizers, and that's what we're going to look at next. So after doing some research, I found that graphic organizers really help with more fact-based fields such as science and social studies, which is a lot to do with my writing class because I have to do informational essays. So using graphic organizers help with that, and most periods started doing better after that. There would be a couple students in each class that were still failing, but it was achieving well over 80% of the students were more organized in their essays after implementing those, except for 4th period, so that was still an issue there. I really like this picture. I wanted to add this in really quick because whenever I start thinking about graphic organizers, they work as scaffolding methods. There are two types of tape measures that I've seen. Ones that tell you what the fractions are and the other ones that don't. So if I give a student an assignment that was like, cut this board, nail this board together, and they have to have the correct measurements. If I give them a tape measure that tells them what each line represents, it makes it easier on them. Right, the thing gets done quicker, the assignment does, and they do it even more correctly. So that's what graphic organizers are like. So now it's up to you all. These 2 are sticky notes. You can double click on this, or you can copy this and paste it and double click on it. It'll allow you to type. And I want to know what you use or can use graphic organizers for in your class. You should just be able to double click on it, should work.
Okay, yeah, then that's.
It's still not working.
Do I need to be in present mode for it to do it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Just like this, edit mode.
That's what I thought.
That's why I have to click off the present mode, that way it will actually show up on here.
It's not showing at all, is it?
Is it not working for you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Do we have edit rights?
I thought so. Maybe we don't. That's fine. You just want to share it out?
I definitely use graphic organizers for organizing information. And then also just to kind of bridge the gap, like this year I used one prior to an extended response. We used a Venn diagram because they had to compare and contrast 2 passages, and it helped them to be able to like see both sides and then see the commonalities.
Yeah. So like for me, I use the hashtag organizer. I think that one worked the best. I was just doing the chicken foot and the T-chart, which the chicken foot Jeff also uses. Did you use that this year, Jeff? The chicken foot?
I sure did.
It helps with the thesis statements and the thesis buckets, but for some of the kids, like in 4th period, they really, it just didn't help enough. And so I asked Ms. Fannin about it. She told me about the hashtag that she used, and that really helped them. Aiden was one of the kids that whenever I gave the mock on demand test, he didn't actually write the essay, but he filled out the whole entire hashtag, which was 3 paragraphs. And he felt proud about that, so of course, I didn't diminish him in any way for that, but because he wrote 3 paragraphs, which is more than what he's ever wrote before. But they finally got to the point now where they're starting to get more organized in it, and so it really worked. You got any you use?
I just use simple ones.
You use the hashtag too, don't you?
Yeah.
Okay. Have you used the chicken foot yet?
No, I was
No.
interested in it.
Do you know what the
You
chicken
have to
foot
show
is?
me. Nope.
We had used the chicken foot.
Yeah. So chicken foot's big in social studies.
I don't. Not in my room.
Okay, so let's go ahead and look at the other problem here that I had. So, like I mentioned earlier, fourth period, you know, some of the students, I would say three out of 19 students in there had it down. They could write an essay. But 80% of the class couldn't. So the next thing I thought of, well, the issue must be with them remembering the keywords. Because anytime I would say thesis statement, hook, background information, they couldn't point it out, they couldn't tell me what it was. So that was the first issue that had to be solved, right? So thanks to you and Heather, you all came up with the Blooket, and I decided to implement that. And here's the results that I found. So as you see, the first practice, only 10 students were passing, right? 10 students could remember the terminology well enough, above 80%. After this, it starts raising. So the first and second practice were the 2 days. So I go from 10 on the first practice, and the next practice, 13% were passing now. Then the third practice happened actually 2 days after. It dropped back down to 74% here, but then it raised up to 92%. So now 92% of the kids in class can remember what each term represents. And I'm for sure that if I gave them practice again, it would still be 90% or above. Okay, so since we can't use this, we're just gonna share out how we use Blooket. So Andy, do you wanna go first?
Yeah, so this year is the first year that I have used Blooket consistently for vocabulary, and it has made such a difference in my vocabulary program overall. I got the idea from the Edge Protocols book, and it's called Fast and Curious, and it just basically says that like you start on a Monday, you introduce the new terms with the Blooket on a Monday, they play, and then you know you do what you did and you put that first average down. If you can play 2 times during a class period, but like you don't have to. You can go ahead and just let them play the next day. And I've never been like so happy with my vocabulary program overall. Like the kids are engaged. There's never any whining or not, like you would have with traditional like definitions. So I really like it.
Yeah. Have you, so like if I go back to this, have you seen the trend where it starts going up with like remembrance?
Definitely.
So I didn't use Blooket last year at all, and I did this year, and that's the first time like I've seen a class that can go from 60% of the kids not being able to write an essay, and just by using Blooket and the organizers, it shoots up to 80% that can write an essay. So, Carly, do you use Blooket for anything?
Yeah, I use Blooket for math, like if we're doing different vocabulary words in math and reading.
Does it help?
Yes,
So far?
especially with my special needs
Yeah.
kids. It actually does remember, they don't just remember the answer like just to get by, they actually have to remember what it is, and I've seen a big growth in them.
Jeff, have you used Blooket yet this year?
I have not.
Have not. You know anything you can use it for?
Yeah, vocabulary especially.
Vocabulary, yeah.
If that good for vocabulary.
You good.
I need to look into it for vocabulary.
You really probably
should.
could, yeah.
Our next vocabulary words.
Cause you get new
Anything
vocab terms,
on
every week
Quizlet?
just about?
Every unit, probably every 2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks.
Anything you find on Quizlet, you can import directly into Blooket, so you don't have to make another list, is another big pro. Like, a lot of times, things will already be on Quizlet that you would want, or you can make your own list on Quizlet and just import it directly, and
And then
it's
you have the quiz-
super quick and
Quizlet
easy
as
that
a
way,
test.
yeah. And then, like, sometimes I'll have them start on the Quizlet and look at the terms first, or then they have the Quizlet also as a study tool, and then where they can go and take the practice test option and kind of see where they're at before the final Blooket that we do.
Do you give a grade for the Blookets?
The way I use the Blooket is when we are consistently, like all the classes are consistently getting like 80% then I will tell them, this is the day that we're gonna do the Blooket before the quiz. And if they get a 90% or better on the Blooket before the quiz, they don't have to take the quiz. And you wouldn't believe how hard they try, because they want that 90%, they want that good score so they don't have to take the quiz. And then it goes in as a 50 out of 50 if they meet the mastery on it.
Well, it's an incentive.
It's a big incentive,
That's actually
That works. I didn't think about that.
And
That would
it's-
work.
Yeah.
with consistency, like they just get so used to it
Mhm.
that you don't, I mean, it just honestly requires very little from you, and they're doing something that they're engaged in.
Yeah.
That really helps with vocabulary.
Yeah, that's what I really liked about fourth period too, was that like how engaged they actually were. It was, even though, you know, we had a little bit of a mishap, it still worked out, so it was great. And well, like me and you talked the other day, is like what I really want to shut that down. If I can get 90% of my kids in my class to understand the concept, there's no point in it. Just keep it going. It's whatever.
Yeah.
Alright, so pros and cons. It helps with recalling information. It provides extrinsic motivation, and it's fun and engaging. And also, what you added, it's an incentive.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Students want to get the 90%. That way, they don't have to take a quiz, because most of the kids don't like taking a sit-down, quiz. Cons is not set in context with the real life, and there's a way that we can get around that. If you've ever have you looked at Marzano's vocabulary?
Yes, I have.
Okay, so Marzano believes that we should set student-friendly terms, like definitions, and that's a way to get it more into context. And plus, we need to be practicing more every week with them actually using the words in their vocabulary. So Jeff's class is really great about doing so. Whenever they get new vocabulary terms, they'll start talking about them. But I think that, like myself, I can work on that more, about them actually using the terms instead of using some kind of slang.
We do that as well, because the terms are from our reading, so they're using the terms as part of our text as we go through, and I'll be like, guys, look, did you see that? That's on your Blooket. That's a vocabulary word.
Okay,
You
so
know?
like if I like figurative language terms, do they consistently use those still?
For something that is academic, like academic vocabulary or vocabulary like that, they will. I do think it helps them. It helps a lot with recall and retention. They don't. I mean, they're still going to forget some things,
Yeah.
because that's just students and society. That we're also dependent on Google. That they don't have the motivation, like, oh my gosh, I've got to remember this, like, when I was growing up, and when I was in school. But I still think it's very beneficial, and it's very helpful.
Yeah. So maybe for this one, we need to switch it to, I mean, it's still not set in context, but with the academic language that they have to learn, we really need to get them, instead of using the tier 3 language, like thesis statement, hook, background, switch over, having more of a focus on remembering the tier 3 language, but using the tier 2 language instead. Because that's the ones that they're going to use more often across each discipline. Right. Not just in social studies or in writing or in math, science, and so there's that. And then my second con here, it is only extrinsically motivating, because as it is, it's a pro and it's a con, because we want kids to be intrinsically motivated.
Right.
If they're intrinsically motivated, they learn more.
Right.
They learn quicker, they learn easier, they enjoy it more. If it's just an intrinsic motivation, eventually it's going to fall off after they get tired of it.
Yeah. It's true.
Okay, so we already talked about next steps too. And that is all.